So back to where it all began, essentially, for the Colts, because they are in Baltimore. Have you been to Baltimore, Eddie Garrison?
I have not. I've not been to the East Coast. The furthest east I've been, I guess technically I've been to the East Coast, is South Carolina.
I like Baltimore. And the Colts are there, of course, with their joint practices with the Baltimore Ravens. As a matter of fact, that gets underway just about an hour from now. And then, of course, the scrimmage or the preseason game on Thursday night. That will give us indication where things stand, perhaps at the quarterback position. I don't mean that it would give us indication on who is going to be their week one starter, but it probably will give us indication just exactly if, in fact, Anthony Richardson has made stride, where Daniel Jones is, because it is the first time that they will be seeing a defense under which they are relatively unfamiliar with tendencies and personnel and formations and schemes and etc. And you would rather, as I have said, have Anthony Richardson be looking promising at this point than you would have him coming out and throwing in the dirt on a regular basis or sailing over receivers on a regular basis. However, there has been a little bit of each, truth be told. He has more often than not looked like he is showing progression, but then each time there are two steps forward, there seemingly is a half a step or a step back. Now, Jake, there are two quarterbacks, and this is an open quarterback competition. Daniel Jones is there as well. I get that. But with Daniel Jones, what we have seen is a more consistent idea of who he is. A more accurate passer, but not near the level of like tools within the toolbox that you get with Anthony Richardson. And so you almost kind of just defer or default to, okay, Jones is there and we know that he is ready to go if need be, but that is going to be if, in fact, Anthony Richardson is not showing us what we want to see. Because he is still, as I've said, the incumbent, and he is the guy that they have put a lot into. DJ Giddens apparently is getting some more rep at the running back position. Obviously, that's Jonathan Taylor's position. But in terms of the backup running back spot or somebody that can be used in different situations, you know, we've seen that. Even though Taylor is capable of being an 1,900-yard back, you have seen the possibility for a Giddens to go in there and or someone at that position and spell or do different looks. You know, Goodson obviously gets some looks in that as well. That's one of the things that we will look for. But good afternoon to you. My name is Jay Query. You just heard the voice of Eddie Garrison. It is Query and Company here on a Tuesday on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. Look forward to 2 days from now, our golf outing out at the Legends Golf Course. And things being finalized for that, all to benefit Franciscan Health Foundation. And that is something that we very much look forward to see those of you who have signed up and are going to be out there. We look forward to the fun and hijinks that will take place, and then also doing our shows from that location. Tomorrow, I will be actually at the great Indiana State Fair once again, this time for the Governor's Cup. You've heard us talking about it over the course of the summer. All of the county fairgrounds with the Indiana Sires Cup taking place, and now the Governor's Cup, which is the culmination of all of it at the State Fair, and we will be out there tomorrow broadcasting the show for that. The Fever are in action tonight. They are in Los Angeles, correct, Eddie?
You are accurate. They are indeed.
So it's going to be a late night for you.
Yes, Jake.
As the pre- and post-game host for the Indiana Fever. But
as one of our commonalities, it's always a late night for us, Jake. We never go to bed before 2 a.m.
Well, now, just so people know, that those are in separate locations. Fever looking for 6 straight. And Stephanie White, their head coach, going to join us coming up just about 10 minutes from now, as a matter of fact. And they may be playing and obviously when you're on a win streak, it goes without saying. That means they're playing well. But they really have, in the last week and a half, and the easy narrative, of course, is to look at it and say, boy, ever since Caitlin Clark's been out, look at how they're playing. Clearly, you would rather have Caitlin Clark on the floor than not. But I keep going back to something that Carolyn Peck said, which I think is a really good point. Carolyn Peck, who, of course, was Stephanie White's coach in college and is now a television analyst, when she said, without Caitlin Clark on the floor, the Fever become a bigger challenge to game plan. That's not to say necessarily that it means that they are a better team, but you do have to be more careful if you're guarding them on where exactly they're going, because they mix it around a little bit, and they probably more so than you know that when it's Caitlin Clark, okay, what we do know is that is the one player that it is going to, most possessions are going to start with her and oftentimes finish with her. And it's a much bigger, like head on the snake to keep an eye on. But without Caitlin Clark there, admittedly now they have found a balance, and it takes a while to find that. It does take a while to find that. But there's a lot to talk about with Stephanie White, which I look forward to getting to coming up here just a couple of minutes from now, as a matter of fact. We're going to do things a little bit differently today, but Stephanie will join us just under 10 minutes from now. Eddie, did you do anything fun last night since we were last together?
I mowed the grass, Jake. That's what I did. That's what I did last night.
Didn't you say you're allergic to grass? Am I
Pollen.
wrong in that? Huh?
Pollen.
How long did it take you to mow your lawn?
It was a little bit longer yesterday because I had to do some weed picking up. So,
really?
Yeah, I had to pick up some weeds.
Don't you normally go to Michigan for that?
Nice, well played. Cannot confirm nor deny that. There are other states too.
You're a riding mower or push mower guy?
Push. Yard is not big enough for a riding mower.
Okay, fair enough.
Not to mention, I enjoy the physical labor of walking around.
Fair enough. I watched a little baseball last night.
What'd you watch?
The Phillies.
Okay, I didn't know if you were watching Little League Baseball World Series or not.
So I did. Okay, another topic there. This is a very slippery slope. Okay? I will not lie about this fact, and it's going to be an unpopular opinion because I understand the enthusiasm that people have for youth sports.
Do we have enough time for you to get into this, Jake?
No.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Okay.
But I want to get into this later today because I have kind of this like moral dilemma where I know that I'm on an island by myself, and I know that my opinion would not be a popular one. But I did watch some of the Little League World Series last night, and I have many, many thoughts on that. Many. And I have them every year. But we'll get into that later today because I am open to the fact it is not my intention ever on this show to be, some vociferous, lamb-blasting flamethrower, I'm smarter than everyone else. It's not my style. Okay? I joke about it sometimes, but it's not my style. But I do have opinion on the Little League World Series that I am curious whether or not my opinion is the popular or unpopular opinion because I don't know. I just know that I feel strongly about it. But when I was watching it last night for a bit, I did see a kid that when he came to bat and it lists his favorite player was Sean Casey. And I'm like, is this a time traveler?
There was a 12-year-old who said his favorite movie was The Notebook.
The Notebook, though, at least, that's weird, but The Notebook, at least, you can watch. I'm not saying you can't go back and watch old games of Sean Casey, but, movies today,
The Mayor.
Your favorite movie could be Star Wars, right? Well, that came out 45 years ago. But Sean Casey retired from baseball, 18 years ago? 17 years ago?
Let me look.
And this kid was 12. So I'm like, that'd be like me saying my favorite baseball player was, you know what I mean?
Hey, shout out to his parents, though. Parents raising him right.
I guess. Son, we're just going to go ahead and watch more DVR of Reds games from 10 years before you were born. Okay.
2008 was his last year in the major leagues.
This kid was born in 2013. It was 5 years before the kid was even born.
Can you guess what team Sean Casey ended his playing career with?
Pirates.
No.
Red Sox.
Yes.
How about them apples? Me and that 12-year-old have that in common. I also sit around watching Sean Casey stuff. But no, I watched the Phillies last night. I have a question about Kyle Schwarber later in the show as well. But we're going to do it quick to get to a quick recess because Stephanie White will join us on the other side, and we have a lot to talk about. Fever going for 6 straight. They're in Los Angeles. What's the latest on Caitlin Clark? That's probably one of the first things that we'll ask when we talk to her next. With Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White when she comes on, we let Coach White pick the music, right? Because with all due respect, and I've always heard that Garth Brooks literally is apparently like the nicest performer of all time.
And if you remember, Jake, when we had this debate the first time we had Coach White on, we were trying to guess who she had blasting in her car radio her senior year of high school, and Garth Brooks was my guess.
I think that's right, and I think she said that was a possibility. But here's the thing. I think she wanted that song because, and it's not necessarily that she would claim that we're friends, but she does know that I'm in low places. I think that's what that means, and that's why she selected that song. I don't know if I should take this as a compliment or not, but I should be flattered by the fact that it is 9:15, I believe, on the West Coast, and Coach White joining us on the program. Coach, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excuse me. You know what? We're good. I just swallowed the wrong way, but other than that,
choked up over the song.
Yeah, that's right. It's that song's a lot for me to swallow, admittedly. Hey, let's get to this. You guys right now may be the hottest team in the league, just in the way that you're playing. And I was thinking about this as I was watching the game in Seattle, and each time the Storm kind of got things close and that crowd got going, I thought it was Tosh Howard that really made big plays for you guys. It was facilitated by others, but it was like different game, different night, and you never know which one it's going to be that is your go-to. And so I'm curious, from a coaching standpoint, what has led to kind of this balance, if you will, of being able – are you schematically picking different players each night that you're saying this is an area we can exploit, or is this just speaking to the depth you guys are now being able to show?
I think it's really speaking to the depth that we're able to show, number one. I think number two, we certainly know that teams are going to game plan for Kelsey and for AB. And so how do we, manipulate coverage, so to speak, to try to get some easy buckets to loosen them up. And, Tosh is a great off-ball cutter. She finds the seams. She finds the gaps. She kept a lot of plays alive on the offensive glass. She had some really tough finishes. And, those finishes and her ability to get loose allowed AB to get loose in the fourth quarter, because then they couldn't sag off of Tosh. They couldn't help onto AB. And so, she's really timely in her ability to find those seams. And her teammates do a great job of getting it to her.
How impressed have you been and how satisfied have you been from a coaching standpoint in the professionalism of Ari McDonald to come back into a situation and maybe not even know just how much was going to be expected, and now to be really kind of a glue piece for you guys here during this stretch?
Yeah, she has been. And, Ari comes back and expects to play behind C, no doubt. And with Caitlin's injuries, she's been thrown into not just a starting role, but the role where we need her to make plays on both ends for us, and she's really stepped up to that. She's so fast. She changes the way we play because of her speed. Her decision making, has been really good, and when to get to the rim and when to find her teammates. She adds another downhill driver. Prior to having Ari, really Kelsey was our only downhill driver, and she adds another downhill driver that gets defenses in rotation for us, and she sets the tone for us on the defensive end of the floor. I've just been really impressed with not just the way that she's come in and produced, but the way that she's managed the team from the point guard position without having gone through training camp and just being thrown into the fire.
Fever in action tonight, taking on Los Angeles. Their head coach, Stephanie White, joining us on the program. Coach, I wanted to – we've talked before about the fact of kind of parlaying your knowledge from your playing days into coaching and, situations and things like that. When you go back to your days as a player and you had to play for different coaches, which is a bigger challenge, or which do you think, when you look back on was harder to do in the moment? Being a player that had to adapt to different styles that the coach wanted, or being a coach that has to coach differently to the different responses a player has?
Yeah, I think it's changed so much, because back in those old days, it was more about a coach's system and players fitting into that system. I think now it's about coaches adapting to what kind of players you have, and manipulating a system to fit them. So I think it's a little bit of both. Certainly it was difficult at times to play for a lot. I played for a ton of different coaches, 3 and 4 years in college. I played for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the W as well. So it was an adjustment. But it is a challenge now because players are better than they've ever been. They're more versatile than they've ever been. The game has changed so much, and you as a coach have to adapt your system and what you're looking for to who you have on your team and how to best utilize each player on the floor. Certainly for us, we have a lot of different pieces and we play differently, with the group that we have right now than we do sometimes when Caitlin comes back and when Caitlin plays as well. So it's a challenge, but I think that's one of the things that I love about this game is that it is a chess match. And you have to try to figure out how to put the pieces in position to be successful. And it's a good challenge. It's one of the things that I loved as a player is the IQ portion of it, the X's and O's portion of it. And it's one of the things that keeps me motivated every day. How do we put our team and our players in positions to be successful?
How do you, as a coach, how long does it take for you to really know the personality and the way a player responds? Because player A may be one that needs to be challenged daily. Player B may be one that does not respond to that at all and rather needs to be trusted, and that's how they best respond. And the coach's job is to kind of know which players need to be pushed and which players need to be pulled and which players need to be padded. As a coach, how long does it take you to really get that feel of the personalities of a team?
Yeah, it takes some time. And quite honestly, you can't even really do it in practice as much as in the game, because practice, as much as you want to try to simulate game situation, it doesn't adequately simulate the pressures, the moments, the ebbs and flows of a game. And so you can with some players early and just really get a sense of what they need. And some of them, it's in the moment. It's being able to do it through experience. I feel like by All-Star break, we pretty much had a sense of most players on our team. But a lot of it's just, I say this all the time about players and playing. It's like there's no substitute for experience, and it's the same in interactions with players. There's just really no substitute for the experience that we get through playing together, through dealing with adversity, through being in time and score situations on the floor. Not just who to get the ball to and who takes the shot, but who can facilitate, who can inbound the ball, who can handle the pressure of the moment, who do you need to pour into, who do you need to challenge? Those kinds of things happen throughout the course of the season, and we've had a pretty good idea of some of them prior to coming in, just based on experiences that we've had. But the others we've had to really get to know.
Have you seen the movie, Coach? Stephanie White is our guest. Fever in action tonight, taking on Los Angeles there in seek of their 6th straight win. Have you seen the movie Miracle about the 1980?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So, spoiler alert for those that haven't seen it. There's the famous scene where Herb Brooks is making them continue to skate shifts after a game where they were not getting his message. And then finally, Mike Eruzione shouts out, Michael Eruzione, and he says, "Who do you play for?" And he says, "I play for the United States of America." And it's the moment that, you're supposed to realize the team's gotten it, right? The epiphany is there. Have you guys hit that point this year? And if so, was there a moment where you as a coach looked over the roster and said, they're getting it?
Yeah, I don't know if there's been one singular moment. I think there have been a few instances. Certainly putting ourselves in position to win the Commissioner's Cup and do it, on Minnesota's home floor. Dealing with adversity and seeing this group continue to come together. I felt really pleased when we were in Seattle, and there had been moments throughout the course of the season where we have not handled opponents' runs very well. We were double digits. I think they closed the third quarter on a 10-1 run. We got back up in the fourth. Skylar Diggins hits an and one to either tie it or cut it to 1 or something. And, the crowd is erupting, and the group just came together. They came together, and you could see their heads were held high, their chests were out, and it was like, we got this. And that's a moment that I'm really proud of, because throughout the course of the season, we haven't always responded that way. And I felt really good about where we were in that moment and how they came together and how they handled the runs. I mean, Seattle's a tough place to play. It's a loud arena. It's a loud environment. That's a really great team. And I felt in that moment, okay, like we get it. We get it. Now we've handled this and we're going to finish this one out.
We mentioned yesterday we had John Nolan on who was doing the radio play-by-play for that. And I was running errands on Sunday listening to the game as I'm driving in my car. And Coach, I'm not kidding you. There were a couple of times late in the third, I think Seattle got it within 4. It was almost hard to hear him. It was that loud, at least coming over the radio, it was that raucous within that arena. Is that the fan base that has the potential to be the loudest in the WNBA? Is that as good an environment as you see?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been as good of an environment from the time I was, playing to now. It's a fun environment. It's a good environment. For me, it's crazy because once I get out there as a coach, I don't really hear a lot anymore. But certainly when I think about the history of the league, Phoenix used to be that way as well. I remember that back when I was a player. That was a place that got really, really loud as well. Our environment, heck, the way that we get in our arena too. And I think that we're seeing that what used to be a Seattle, a New York when they were playing in the Garden, a Phoenix. Now it's happening across the W, and it makes it so much fun to go into these arenas with these passionate fans and to allow our players to experience environments like that. I mean, it's so much fun.
Kelsey Mitchell has experienced a lot of different things within this franchise, Coach, and now they're having a lot of success. Your team is, and I've heard Sophie Cunningham talk about this along with Kelsey Mitchell countless times this year, just how special of a group this is. From your perspective, you've been around the WNBA for pretty much the last 25 years. Where does this group's camaraderie rank within the teams that you've been a part of?
Man, I mean, they're really tight. It's I remember our 2012 team was pretty tight. The team that won the championship. I don't know that I was ever on a WNBA team that was as tight as this group and has such good chemistry and as selfless as this group. And it really is. This is a team. I mean, we're deep, and sometimes when you're so deep, it's challenging because everybody wants to play, right? And everybody deserves to play in certain moments. But it's not going to happen because you have that depth and their chemistry, their ability to pull for one another. Their ability to know that it can be anybody's night, and to feed that person and to empower that person or those people. It's a selfless group, and we talk about all the time choosing the we over the me, and this is a group that does that and lives that, and they genuinely like each other. They have great chemistry. They're a connected group, and I'm not sure that I've seen a team in the W that is as connected as these guys, and it makes it really special and fun to go to work.
Coach, I'm going to ask you a question that we have from a listener here that's something you and I have touched upon a couple of weeks ago in our conversation, but I want to revisit it. And I know it sounds like kind of a nitpick, easy thing to pinpoint when you have a star like Caitlin Clark out, but I still think it's a good question from Charles. And he says, I'm just curious, is there any thought that perhaps the Fever do, in fact, have more of an advantage when Caitlin is not on the court because teams don't know exactly what player it is that the Fever will be going through, as opposed to the obvious that she is somebody you'll be going through when she is on the court? Is there some truth to that?
I think there's some truth to that. It's interesting because I compare it to I called a Dallas Mavericks game before Thanksgiving, and Luka was out with injury. And I asked Jason Kidd very similar question, and I would say I would answer it very similar to what he did. It is different. There's some truth to that in that you don't know whose hands the ball is going to be in. We get production from multiple players every night, so it's very difficult for a scouting report to key on one or two players. Caitlin Clark is always going to be the top of the scouting report. So when she is on the floor, yes, they know that she's going to have the ball in her hands. Yes, they know that she is a dynamic playmaker. But because of that, we also open up other things for everybody else. I think what this group has learned and the advantage that it has given us is that when we get in those crunch time moments, when Caitlin Clark is on the floor, no one is afraid to take the big shot. No one is afraid to make the play. No one is afraid to make the extra pass because they trust one another implicitly. They know that one another is going to is going to step up in those moments. And because Caitlin is able to see that as well, inherently, she's going to have that trust in her teammates. And I think that it makes us, while we want to have her on the floor, it has made us a better, more confident group. She's able to see that from the sideline and she's a smart player, one of the smartest players I've ever been around, and understand how I can get my teammates in positions for success. And I know when they're sending 2 and 3 defenders at me that I make the right play and they're going to get it done. And I think that will pay dividends for us.
And by the way, congratulations to Aaliyah Boston, who has been named the WNBA Eastern Conference Player of the Week. That announcement coming within the last hour or so. Stephanie White, the head coach of the Fever, our guest. Stephanie, I did want to ask you as well, your old franchise that you were a part of, the Connecticut Sun, obviously you were aware of the reports of their sale now to an investment group led by the minority owner of the Boston Celtics, and the report that franchise will be vacating Connecticut to move to Boston. I'm sure that even though you came from Connecticut to here, that there's still some part of Connecticut, within your heart, just your overall reaction to that news.
Yeah, first and foremost, the Mohegan Sun Tribe and the Council of Elders there are great ambassadors for women's sports. And I think back to the time that they moved the Orlando Miracle to Connecticut, and we didn't quite know what to expect. And they have taken great care of the WNBA and great care of the franchise, and really were leaders in the movement of the WNBA at that time. And I think that it's a different time now, and continuing to make the decisions that need to be made, to whether that's building a practice facility or having a different arena, or relocating a franchise, are hard decisions. And I don't know where we are with actually if that's coming to fruition or not. I mean, I know that there's some other reports out there as well, but I really do want to emphasize just the passion with which the Tribe have for the WNBA and for the players and for the Connecticut Sun organization, and how well they have taken care of and elevated the WNBA as well. I think Boston's a great city. I've had 2 experiences coaching in TD Garden. The environments were amazing, and so if that happens, it would be a great WNBA city. But I'd be remiss if I didn't just remind people how invested the Mohegan Sun Tribe had been in women's sport, and how much they've poured into the WNBA.
Coach, your team arguably the hottest right now in the WNBA. Winners 6 straight, 8-2 in the last 10. You're taking on a Los Angeles Sparks team that beat your team twice at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and they are arguably the second hottest team right now in the WNBA. They're 7-2 in their last 9. What challenges do they present? Because Azurá Stevens and De'Erica Hamby, after the All-Star break, have been playing at a different level.
Yeah, I mean, the toughest thing for us is just their length. Their length causes us challenges. They've got Azurá Stevens, who's at like 6'5". They've got De'Erica Hamby, who's at 6'4". Cameron Brink is back, who's at like 6'6". Rakia Jackson's a 6'3" wing. She's long. Julie Alamond is a 6'1" point guard. I mean, so their length has caused us problems. We've gotten in situations when we've played them where we've at times over-penetrated, gotten too deep, have not been able to find the right play and find the right pass. We've got to really do a good job of making sure that we make the easy play. We've got to make sure that we offensively that we make the easy play, that we read their switches. But defensively, they've been dominant in the paint, and they've been dominant from the three-point line. And so we've got to be really disciplined in not giving up easy shots, trying to force them into tough twos as much as possible, and try to keep them off the free throw line. It's going to be a tough matchup for us, and we've got to make sure that we're incredibly disciplined on both ends.
Where do things stand finally, Coach, with Caitlin Clark and her return?
Yeah, I mean, there's no changes yet. Continuing to go through this rehab process, beginning to do some running and build some endurance, and continuing to take it slow and make sure that when she does come back, when she does return to court activities, that she's 100% ready to go. By
the way, Eddie, somebody pointed out that the Garth Brooks you bounced back with might have been a cover and not actually Garth Brooks. Coach White, are you a big enough Garth Brooks fan that you can determine whether or not that was a cover or the actual Garth Brooks?
I don't know. Let's see. Play it.
Play it, Eddie.
I don't have it anymore. I just had the next song for the next segment queued up already.
Oh, well. See, he's prepared. He's thinking one pass ahead.
Eddie's back to Oasis. He's off the Garth Brooks. He's well trained. Coach, best of luck tonight against the Sparks. Appreciate the time as always. Travel safely, obviously, but good luck in getting 6 in a row.
All right. Thanks, Jake.
All right, Stephanie White joining us on the program. It sounded like Garth Brooks to me, to be honest with you. It sounded like Garth Brooks to me. What shirt are you wearing, by the way, Eddie?
It's called The Boys, Jake. It's a show on Amazon Prime that I enjoy thoroughly. The final season's coming up soon.
And what's the plot, if you will, of The Boys?
Oh, it's like a play off of like stuff that's going on in like today's world, like politically, economically, socially, and
It's a playoff of stuff.
yes, the guy that is pretty much in charge is a representative of somebody of power in the United States of America.
And is he like he looks like he's like some sort
And they're
of
all
superhero.
superheroes, yes.
Okay, yeah. And this takes place in what city?
I think New York.
Okay. I have Little League baseball thoughts. Should I do that on the other side?
Sure.
It's one of those where I'm going to ask the temperate of the audience of whether or not I'm old and jaded. We'll do it next. And again, big show lined up for you, as a matter of fact, today. Joel Erickson going to join us 1 o'clock. Colts are practicing today in Baltimore against the Ravens. Joel from the Indianapolis Star. About 23 minutes from now, it's Query and Company here on The Fan. Brooks and Dunn, is it not?
That is Brooks and Dunn.
We've exhausted my knowledge of country music. So I have very mixed feelings about the Little League World Series because it's always interesting to me when I watch it. And I should preface with this, and I understand it. I open myself up to this when people are like, you don't have kids of your own. It's true. I'm not a parent. Guilty as charged, right? And maybe that means that I don't have a full appreciation for those things. But I was a kid, and I played Little League. I can still tell you every team that I played for. I played for the Giants. I played for the Indians. I played for the Red Sox. I played for the White Sox. I played for the Tigers. I played for the Cubs. I can tell you the sponsors, all of that, right? Love Heating and Air, by the way, sponsor of the Red Sox. Still have the baseball from when I threw a no-hitter. Still have the ball, signed by the whole team. So I love it. And I love the culture of Little League Baseball, all of it. But when they started televising, not the Little League World Series itself, that was always on Wide World of Sports, when it was usually a team from like Taipei and then an American team, Far East versus the whatever team represented the United States. Although I have to admit, when it came to the Little League World Series, I'm like, wait a minute, World Series? Like, why are there never teams from like Denmark in this, right? But I digress. I always enjoyed it. But now that they were getting even further and further back into the tournament of it being televised, the regionals and the state and those sorts of things. And I was the same way, admittedly, when I was a kid. I had a batting glove that I think I got like at a Reds game. And I wore that not because it helped my grip, because that's what I saw big leaguers wear. And we chewed big league chew. But I'm watching yesterday, and I mean, this kid's up there, and he looks like Barry Bonds. He's got on the elbow, protector, and 9 pounds of eye black, and and then he gets a hit, and he gets to first, and he's calling timeout, and he's taking off all of the gear, and he's Nomar Garcia-Parring his gloves, and I get it. I mean, kids emulate the athletes that they grow up watching. I totally get it. But at the same time, I can't deny, there is part of me that feels like there is a parasitic nature towards watching and putting pressure on these kids at like the age of 11 and 12 years old, when I assume some of them are probably playing because now schools are starting earlier and earlier. And there's part of me that's like, you know what? We watched the Little League World Series and we applaud that these groups of kids are seemingly even missing school to play in it. And that's all well and good. But there is a hypocrisy to it to an extent, because if these were kids in an AAU basketball tournament that were taking place during the school year and being televised, and you had kids that were emulating LeBron James, there would be like this outcry about it. Or, with some sport, like tennis is one, in golf for that matter, that the younger players are then they're listed as phenoms. Mm-hmm. Whereas in other sports, when players are super young and is there a race element to this? Is there a socioeconomic element to this? I think there is to a great extent. But the Little League World Series, I can't deny that I end up, partially because it's, even though I realize now we're kind of out of summer because most schools are already back, it is still the summer month. And it when there's not a lot of other sport on, I end up watching it almost by default and finding myself entertained by it. And then I wonder if that's not somewhat parasitic and hypocritical of me, because there really is not a whole lot of reason that I should be peering in on the happenings of a bunch of sixth graders that I have no connection to, nor do I have kids of my own. And then I see some of the dads, when they have them mic'd up, these coaches, and the coaches themselves, and I mean this is no disrespect and no indictment as a whole on the vast majority of people that are coaching youth sports. But the coaches at that level, when they have them mic'd up and whatever else, I feel like too often it becomes uncomfortable to watch, because what you're seeing is men who are thinking it's about them and their coaching prowess like they're the next Tommy Lasorda versus just simply letting kids have fun. And I see the pressure that the kids have, and it seems like a lot of them, there's no joy in what they're doing. If they're winning, there is, but like when the team, I mean, you know, I'm watching some poor kid yesterday that walked like 5 straight batters, and I'm thinking, I can't imagine at the age of 12 years old how you handle that, right? They're just, I have this mixed emotion of what it represents in all of us, like culturally speaking, and the levels that we embrace it versus shun it, and the levels of which even myself, while not necessarily completely on board with the validity of it being on television for a regional game, yet I'm watching it, which is why they air it, right? But I did think it was also weird that a 12-year-old kid's favorite player was Sean Casey, who retired 5 years before the kid was born. When I was 12 years old, my favorite player, I mean, admittedly, was probably Joe Morgan, who I didn't see a lot of. I mean, I saw him play, but baseball cards, so maybe that's it. Maybe it was baseball cards is why he's into Sean Casey. But I was thinking, yeah, most kids you'd think would say Kyle Schwarber or, you know, Fernando Tatis Jr. or
Shohei
whatever,
Ohtani.
Right? Shohei Ohtani, yeah.
Ellie De La Cruz, Bobby Witt.
But I don't know, like, what sort of television viewing numbers it does, but I am genuinely curious whether or not anybody else feels that way, especially somebody who doesn't have kids. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I could see somebody being like, dude, why are you watching this? It's not like I'm reliving, I guess, my own Little League experience, but it was just a completely different level. I mean, the Little League baseball, now it's all rec ball and all that. Now, Eddie, you coached baseball and you played baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The Little League World Series that you're watching now, is it truly like Little League kids, or is this basically AAU teams or travel ball teams?
Yes, it's the former there, Jake. It's a bunch of these kids are playing both Little League and travel baseball, and like they play year-round, and they've probably been playing together since they were 6 years old. Like, it's probably some formation of, like, their all-star team that started when they were 6. Next thing you know, they're playing travel together, and, like, most of these kids have played with each other during half their lives. So, I mean, even though it is the quote-unquote Little League World Series, most of these kids are already playing travel at the same time.
Okay, but these are like all-star teams of a representative Little League, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now, the other thing, and I'm curious about, is then I switched over to a big league game, okay?
Yeah.
And as I'm watching that big league game, and this sounds like, and the reason I'm asking is because it is within, locally speaking, the parameters of what we're doing here, okay? But
what are we doing here?
What I'm saying is it's within the parameters of what we do here talking local sports.
Or, yeah, we're entertaining and educating.
Major League Baseball is not we educate and entertain, first off. Major League Baseball is not in Indianapolis the straw mixing the drink by any stretch. Mm-mm. And it's not usually topic A, especially on a day when the Colts are getting ready to take on the Ravens in an organized practice and a scrimmage, and then later a preseason game coming up on Thursday. And the Fever are going for their 6th straight win tonight, which you can hear right here on this radio station, and Eddie will be on the pre- and post game. I mean, there's a lot going on, but because it is a player that played at Indiana, as I'm watching last night, and Kyle Schwarber comes to the plate and he hits his 40th home run. I believe this is the 3rd or 4th, maybe 4th straight season where he's hit 40 home runs or more. He is now 31 years old, and as I'm watching it, I looked up his home run totals. He's somewhere right around 330 career. And it dawns on me. He is probably right now the most popular athlete currently playing from Indiana University for IU fans. IU fans, sure, they like OG Anunoby. Sure, they like Lily King. But Anunoby is, in New York. Lily King is, retiring. Kyle Schwarber was, a baseball player at Indiana, obviously. Like, how many people even followed IU baseball before Schwarber was there? But my question is this. As they're talking about him and he hits a home run and they're saying, the fans are chanting MVP, MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming he stays on the same trajectory and his career goes as most would based on age, deterioration, etc., is Kyle Schwarber a Hall of Famer?
Ooh, it's a good question.
Because he is undeniably, to me, a Hall of Famer means one of two things. It means either you were widely considered the best at your position for the vast majority of your career, or that you were a multifaceted player who was among the best at more than one area of your expertise. Kyle Schwarber does one thing.
Hit dangers.
That's it. He's not a good defender.
He doesn't play the field much.
He's not. Yeah, when he did, he was on roller skates, right? He is not a situational hitter. I mean, he's not a hit for average guy at all. What's his career? I'll bet his career batting average is below 240.
232.
Yeah, I mean, but he has like the second highest number of postseason home runs in Major League history?
He's got 21.
Keep in mind, Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, Luga. I'm not saying all these guys were home run hitters, but when you think about great players, totally different era in the fact that he now has the divisional round, he has the championship series, he has World Series. They're playing best of 5, best of 7. It's a lot different. The number of postseason opportunities he gets is far eclipsing that of the vast majority of legendary home run hitters in baseball history. But he has timely home runs. He has timely hits. And strangely enough, and I'm parroting what somebody else had said to me today earlier, but I thought it was a very good point, in a team that will go down generationally as a feel-good, memorable, beloved, wrap your arms around them and want to hug and squeeze them like your own kid World Series team in the 2016 Cubs, he is at this point the only even within sniffing distance of a Hall of Fame. And so therefore is he the one that they say he's got to go in because somebody on that 16 team needs to be in, even though it's been with other franchises where he has done his prolifics. And he has been a winner at virtually every – I'm not saying he personally is the one winning games, but he won with the Cubs, which had never won anything. He was on the Red Sox and went to the postseason. He's been on the Phillies. He's gone to the postseason every year, but once in his career?
I mean, that World Series roster has 3 Hall of Famers on it.
Which one?
John Lester will be in the Hall of Fame. Aroldis Chapman will be in the Hall of Fame.
I don't know that I agree with either of those, but continue.
And then maybe right now, Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, you think Lester's a Hall of Famer? What are his numbers? What's his win-loss?
Let me pull it up. I mean, he's without question a Hall of Famer in my opinion. Just a matter of time of how long. Let's see. His career, he was 200 wins, 117 losses, a career ERA 3.66.
Yeah, none of that says Hall of Fame. That's Hall of Good. I mean, typically 300 wins is the bench. How many strikeouts?
Strikeouts 2,488.
Yeah, typically it's 300 wins, 3,000 strikeouts, ERA 3.2 or below.
Yeah, but see, now in today's MLB, Jake, wins don't really matter.
I get that. That's fair.
And plus, I mean, he played for the Red Sox and he played for the Cubs.
Okay.
He's going to get in just because of that alone, probably, and he was on a couple World Series teams.
I'll push back on that. Chapman, I don't dispute, has merit, but also I think some of the drama of Aroldis Chapman hurts him a little bit.
The off the field, yes.
But I also, I guess I should have clarified, even with that, I'm talking about the everyday positional players. The ones but Chapman, how many saves does Chapman have career-wise at this point?
Oh, look, he's over 300, I believe.
I think Matt Engle is going to join us at 2 o'clock, and I think he's a voter for the Baseball Hall of Fame. So we'll ask Mac, because when it comes to current baseball, I'll trust you more than me. Admittedly, you watch it more than I.
356 saves for Aroldis Chapman.
How many does Lee Smith have?
Good question.
Because I think Lee Smith was the all-time save leader at one time. How many does Rivera have?
He's got 478.
What's Rivera have? I mean, Rivera is obviously the creme de la creme, but he also
Sandman had 652.
Unbelievable. Chapman, though, I mean, look, the speed of Chapman's pitches for sure, right? I think of Schwarber as Dave Kingman or Greg Luzinski, probably better than Greg Luzinski. I think of Chapman as a Dave Kingman. Great player, great home run hitter. He has more timely home runs. Joel A. Erickson, by the way, speaking of timely, has time to join us next. Colts just getting underway with practice in Baltimore. Now, are they practicing in Baltimore or are they like in Towson or something?
I believe they're in Baltimore. There's not many teams nowadays, Jake, that practice
I know.
off campus, for lack of a better phrase.
Cowboys are one, right? Don't the Cowboys still go to California?
Yes. I bet the Rams are off-site somewhere. I don't know. They probably go to like Hawaii or something.
Or the Steelers. Well, where? If you're the Rams, why would you go anywhere? You're in Los Angeles.
They're the Rams, Jake. They always do the extravagant stuff.
When I covered the Rams, they were in Macomb, Illinois.
I'm pretty sure they
The
had.
most exciting place to be was the Walmart.
I think they may have had like OTAs in Mexico or something.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so, Joel Erickson is with the Indianapolis Star. He is the beat writer for the Colts. Joel, where exactly do the Ravens have their training camp? Are you aware?
I believe it's in Owings Mills, Maryland, at their Normal Performance Center.
Owings Mills, Maryland?
Yes.
That's a fun-sounding town, isn't it? You think it was an old mill town? Is that what it is? And some guy named Owing owned them all?
I don't know. I'm interested in the fact that it's both plural, Owings Mills.
You know what's interesting is if Owing is the guy that had the mills, then at the time he actually was owning mills, right?
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, the alliteration is just off the charts. Okay, we'll begin with this. Not listed at quarterback, okay? The depth chart yesterday, so I'm taking the quarterback off the board for you. That's the low-hanging fruit. When the Colts unofficially released, or, they released an unofficial depth chart, was there anything that truly jumped out at you that you were a little surprised of where they had someone, either to the positive or the negative?
Cameron McGrone over Jalen Carlisle at linebacker caught my eye. All off season, we've kind of assumed that Carlisle was going to be the guy there, but they've got Carlisle behind him now, and that actually does fit somewhat what we've seen on the field. They've rotated those linebackers all over the place. Like the linebacker, I would say, is the hardest one to keep track of who's playing in what group. So it probably isn't settled yet. But it's interesting that McGrone, local guy, he's only played 8 defensive snaps for the Colts in his last 3 years, is listed ahead of Carlisle to me. That was one that was interesting. And then the other one was Tanner Bortolini over Danny Pinter, because they've been pretty much neck and neck in terms of reps throughout the first part of camp.
I thought, and I agree with that on Carlisle, because they've been pretty high on him, right? I mean, they vocally have talked of their praise of him and been supportive of him, correct?
Yeah, especially from a front office level. From a coaching level, I think, what they didn't have him in the May-June portion of it, spring workouts, whatever you want to call that, and I think that maybe didn't help him getting started. But yes, I think everyone has assumed that spot has basically been, carved out there for Carlisle, and it's interesting that it seems to be more of a battle there than we thought.
Okay, the other one that I found interesting, so let's begin with this, Joel. They, in your opinion, will keep how many tight ends?
I think 4.
Okay, so if you look at those 4, you've got obviously, Tyler Warren, that's a given, right? Mo Alley Cox, I think, a given. Then you get Drew Ogletree and Will Mallory. Maybe those 2 are interchangeable. It's interesting to me because 1 and 2, meaning Warren and Mo Alley Cox, then if you were to look at the style of play and what they bring to the table, I kind of think as Mallory as a poor man's Warren and Ogletree as a poor man's Mo Alley Cox, even though Ogletree's a better receiver than Alley Cox, right? But so you get kind of all your bases covered there. Jelani Woods, to me, was interesting because they have been so patient with him and waiting out not 1 but 2 years of injury. Is that just because they simply wanted to see what he could do and he just has not been able to rise to the occasion at this point?
I think the biggest thing was there just wasn't much reason to cut ties with him from a contractual standpoint. He's not making that much to where you'd have to do it, for monetary reasons. And, he's on that rookie deal. He's been hurt. You might as well just keep him around to see if he can tap back into that. Now, I would say that, the biggest thing is he's probably competing for a receiving, not probably, he's competing for a receiving tight end spot because he's just not really a blocker from what we've seen on the practice field, and that puts him up against Will Mallory because obviously Tyler Warren is your number one receiving tight end. And honestly, just Mallory's had a really good camp, and Woods has been a little more up and down. So I think it's pretty obvious. But, yeah, you hang on to him just because, he was hurt last year. It's not like you could have traded him at cut down day or something like that. I didn't think he was going to make the roster last year before he got hurt. So I think more than anything, it's just this doesn't cost that much. It's not hurting us. There's no value we can get out of it elsewhere. Let's just take him to camp next year and see what happens.
Joel, what would you describe as a successful rookie season for Tyler Warren?
Warren, I think to me, it's going to have to be a little bit more of an eye test than a numbers test with Warren, because I still have my doubts about whether or not the quarterbacks are going to give us a really good read on how a player's doing. I think we all have kind of learned with Alec Pierce that the quarterback can play an oversized role in how a receiver looks, what one of the skill position weapons looks. And so, I think that, I think that you'd expect like 60 catches, something like that. You can't do that because I just don't know what this team is going to be like as a passing team and how many passes this team is going to throw. I think it's going to have to be, just us watching and saying, what does this guy look like?
The guy that I, on the roster, am most intrigued by at this point, and Joel, I know this will stun you when I tell you this. I'm a late bloomer intellectually, okay? So I started getting serious about school when I was like 47, okay?
Okay.
Typically problematic with your early academic career. So I was asleep on this a little bit until I was really studying the roster. And then, and only then when I studied the roster, and I don't know if you've ever heard and I have a wide array of characters that I do famously. Kids love it. People love it in public. Have you ever heard my British polo playing character that I do on the radio show, Joel?
I have not.
He's
a
fellow that he talks like this. He comes from the Highlands, right? you know the guy. He's got a pipe. He's in like a library that's, you know what I mean? Yeah. There's a fireplace in the background. So that guy, when he's studying the Colts roster, okay, he's looking at it. He said, yes, I'm not sold on Anthony Richardson. Okay, that's how he talks. And then I look at the roster, and I see one name that jumps out at me, and I go, that's it. This character that I've been doing on the radio for years now is named this guy. It is that is the exact name. And so I need this guy on the roster for the rest of the year to carry on this character because listeners of the show love it. They just love this character, and kids in particular. Would you like to guess what character or what player I'm talking about, what name on the roster?
Is the British polo player.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct, yes.
Charvarius Ward?
That's an outstanding guess, and many would think so. And he's not a bad player, but he's more of a bocce ball guy. Clearly, the guy that I'm doing here is Ulysses Bentley IV.
Oh, okay. Obviously, yes.
We need Ulysses Bentley IV to make the roster. I need people walking around you got people walking around at games wearing Matt Booza jerseys for crying out loud. Why not a Bentley IV? You can break out your Albert Bentley jersey if you'd like and just put an IV on the end of it, right? We need Ulysses Bentley IV to make the roster, partially because his name's Ulysses Bentley IV. Partially because he's a 24-year-old rookie from Ole Miss, and also because, right, we need Ulysses Bentley IV to make the roster. Partially because his name's Ulysses Bentley IV. Because the running back position is one of those fungible positions where in week 11, all of a sudden you get injury and some guy goes in there and goes 8 carries for 48 yards, and it's a good story. Please tell me that's going to be my man Ubi, which is my euphemism for Ulysses Bentley IV.
He probably needs some space to clear in front of him for that to happen. I will say this though, he has occupied a place that I always feel like it's the hardest position in camp is whoever the undrafted free agent running back is. I think that's the hardest position in camp because you're the only one that anybody will allow to hit. And so you get beat up way worse than anybody else. He got to catch a touchdown pass the other day, and I thought that was a nice, thank you present for being the running back in all of the live sessions and everything like that. Because that undrafted spot, you just get hammered.
He's used to it. He's used to it. You know why he's used to it, Joel?
Why?
Have you seen the way they take things to the rugby fields in Scotland? I'm just telling you, for what it's worth, right?
True.
Ulysses Bentley IV, that's my guy. Okay, let's go to the quarterback position. Your anticipation of who will, and I had kind of a reverse psychology answer on this, but you believe that the guy that will get the most reps in this preseason game number 1 against Baltimore will be which at quarterback?
In the first game, I think it'll be Richardson.
Okay. Now, the Green Bay game is the one preseason game, number 2. That's the one that everybody says, well, that's the real look of, that gives you the real indication of the depth chart.
Right.
In that one, the guy that you think will get the most snaps is which?
Well, if I said Richardson for the first one, I have to say Jones for the second one because Steichen told us that's how it was going to go. I'm thinking, though, that the third preseason game is the one we need to watch because with joint practices before the first 2, I'm not expecting the Ravens or the Packers to play anybody that really matters to them.
Because here's my thought, then you tell me that I'm out of my mind here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we, meaning you, myself, Colts fans, whatever it might be, okay? For that matter, Ulysses Bentley III might be thinking this, right? In hopes that his son makes a roster. So everybody looking at it is going to say to themselves, if Daniel Jones gets starting nods throughout the preseason, that means he's won the job. But I think it's entirely possible that the Colts look at it and say, we made the mistake of giving the keys to Anthony Richardson too early in his career. So even if we feel he is going to be the guy in the regular season, we want to make sure that we are continuing to push him and that he is responding because he has responded to this first camp where he truly had competition. So therefore, we are not going to pull the reins off that competition until the 11th hour when we finally have to make that decision officially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a while. Steichen said the other day, him saying the other day that one guy is going to get more of the snaps in the first game than the other guy is going to get more snaps in the second game. Like that told me that we're already past where he was as a rookie in the, quote unquote competition with Gardner Minshew, which I think most of us, don't seriously consider to be that. And I think you're right. I think they're going to push it out. I think they want to know for sure. And I think they feel like they can wait to do that. Like I said, I have that last preseason game earmarked just because it seems like every time there's a joint practice, whoever they're joint practicing against is like, well, our starters have gotten their work on the practice field. We're not going to expose them to the game reps. We're going to pull all those guys off. And if I was Shane Steichen, I would want to see them in game action against some guys they might actually see on a Sunday in September or October instead of just the guys that they're trying to make the roster.
Joel, if you're 34 years old and you've been in the league for, let's say you're a quarterback entering your 11th season in the NFL, you're 34 years old, would you rather right now go to New England and be the starter making $9 million a year, or go to Kansas City or Buffalo and be the backup making $6.5 million a year?
It's a fantastic question.
Has Joel already won a Super Bowl?
No. Joel has been a starter that is, a 500%, he's been a guy that has gone 9-8 for the majority of his career as a starter.
This is the Andy Dalton, Derek Carr-ish type of
Gardner Minshew,
person.
right?
I think I want the starting job. I think I want the starting job because as long as I have a chance of convincing somebody that they should pay me, 3 years, $45 million or 3 years, $50 million or something next year, I think I want to take that. So if I go to New England and things fall the right way and I look pretty good, maybe next year I'm going to end up with the larger contract, whether I deserve it or not.
Would you rather be Obi Toppin on this last year's Pacers team or, gosh, I'm trying to think of who, Jordan Poole on the Washington Wizards?
Obi Toppin for sure.
Okay. Even if the other one gets you paid more?
Yeah, I think that, to me, that discrepancy is so big that I'd much rather be Obi Toppin. The 34-year-old quarterback is probably going to be back in free agency next year and may get one last chance at a starting contract.
What has, to this point, Joel, what storyline has yet, aside from quarterback, what storyline has yet to clarify itself and resolve itself with this Colts team during this training camp that you are surprised you are still having to write about?
That's a good question. I'm surprised that the cornerback position all of a sudden looks iffy.
Right.
You've got hamstring injuries
But
to
part
Jones
of that's
and Brent.
injury, right? I mean, give them credit. They had, we thought they had depth at that, right? We thought like they had this really good cupboard, and then all of a sudden 2 of the dishes fell out and got cracked, right?
Right. So, yes, exactly. Like that's the biggest thing is that you thought you had depth there, but that's the position that all of a sudden more so than anything else, that's the position where I'm going. I don't know. We don't really know exactly what Ward is dealing with. Shane Steichen said tightness in his legs. I think that's, as vague a description as you can get for a player's injury. And then, we know that Jalen Jones suffered a pretty significant hamstring injury. Steichen himself told us that. And then Juju Brents, is a player that has struggled with this stuff throughout his career, and also it's a hamstring. And I think most sports fans know by now that hamstrings are unpredictable. And I think that position, I'm just going, man, they really thought that they felt like they had a lot of depth. I'm sure they still feel like they're okay for the regular season because it's a month away. But, man, that's a lot of corners down already where you're seeing Jonathan Edwards, who's an undrafted free agent, playing with the starters at cornerback.
By the way, the tight end position with Tyler Warren, this is an assignment for you, Joel. This is a rainy day assignment for you because I know you love those, right?
Of course.
I'd like to know a list. I'll give you till the end of the year to come up with this, okay? I'd like the list of the 20 greatest NFL players all time whose first name and last name both are either the first or last name of a U.S. president. What do you think?
Off the top of my head, Roosevelt Colvin seems like he'd be on that list.
Is there a president with the first or last name of Colvin?
I'm
saying both.
Wait, I got the parameters wrong.
Both. I mean,
Tyler
here's the thing.
Warren,
here's the thing for Tyler Warren. Tyler Warren's got the double whammy of John Tyler and Warren Harding. I mean, basically bottom of the barrel here, right? But still, 2 presidents, right? I mean, one had the Teapot Dome scandal. The other got impeached. I mean, let's go, right?
We don't have any presidents named Reggie, right?
What's that?
We don't have any presidents named Reggie, right?
Actually, John Tyler did not get impeached. He just did not get nominated again by his own party after serving presidency, which is pretty bad. No president named Reggie, correct.
Man, I'm trying to think of. I was using the 2 Bushes. I was like, there's definitely got to be someone in there. Man, I was hoping I could come up with one right off the bat, and it's not working.
Here's the thing, and you realize what just happened here, right?
Mm-hmm.
about 2:30 in the morning. And you know how much harder it's going to be for the beer fairy to surprise you on the porch now, because you're going to be up at 2:30 in the morning sitting there thinking about damn presidents, right? It's exactly what's going to happen.
That's true.
This is why you come on
That's
this
true.
program, is it not?
I'm going to look at every roster this year and
I
sit
know.
there and go through it.
Listen, I'm telling you right now, people are in their car right now saying, this guy on the radio is a complete idiot. And then tonight when they're sitting around dinner, they're going to go, I heard something interesting today. I'm telling you, this is what goes on in this noggin that is essentially like 465 rush hour traffic. It's just always jammed up, right? Okay, lastly, before we let you go, in all honesty, Joel, and I appreciate the time, Joel Erickson is our guest from the Indianapolis Star. He is the Colts beat writer. The thing that we really want to look for and see in this trip to Baltimore from this team, aside from the obvious, but areas that you think that Shane Steichen or Chris Ballard might be looking at with more of a fine-tooth comb than we would guess. And obviously, yes, depth at corner is an issue. And then obviously, yes, the quarterback position. But there are other areas, whether it be offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, whatever it may be. What jumps out?
Center. I think the Ravens are a great test for centers because they're going to bring a lot of blitzes. They're going to make them do identification. Bortolini and Pinter are competing. It feels to me like that competition is a bigger deal than we think. I think center is a big one. I think this is probably something people were already looking at, but if they kick a field goal, just pay attention. Spencer Schrader has been much better than Maddox Trujillo so far, but he hasn't been to the point that Brian Mason wants him to be. That's the special teams coordinator. He said he's at 87% the other day, and they would prefer him to be at 90 in practices. So anytime somebody kicks, and then the other thing that I'm curious about is how does this defense, particularly the defensive line, look against Baltimore's offensive line, whether it's in practice, I believe they're practicing right now, or whether it's in the preseason game. I think the practice I care more because I'm assuming guys like DeForest Buckner are probably not playing on Thursday.
By the way, didn't the Colts have a linebacker named? Did they have an Andrew Johnson linebacker? Am I right or wrong in that?
They have an Alex Johnson.
Andrew Jackson.
Right
they had
now.
an Andrew Jackson linebacker. That's what I'm thinking of. Andrew Jackson. They had a linebacker named Andrew Jackson.
They have an Alex Johnson corner. Does that count with an Alexander and a Johnson?
What president was Alexander? Oh, Alex.
You're right. There's not one.
Yeah, Alexander Hamilton. See, I've always thought Ben Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, and Aaron Burr. Those are three guys that a lot of people think were presidents at one point, but they weren't.
Yeah.
Now, here's the last thing, Joel, and I'm going to give you permission to use this. And it's not often that I let people, give permission to use my stuff, right? But in the NBA circles, I have the famous queryism of 2025 guys. You've heard me mention this. Guys that score 20 a game on a 25-win team their entire career, okay? Kyle Kuzma, quintessential 2025 guy. You've probably heard me mention this before, but with this situation that we're monitoring at corner for the Colts, I always say defensive backs and offensive linemen are the NFL's cell phone chargers and sunglasses. You can never have too many because just when you think you do, one of them breaks or you lose one. Every time. There you go.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like the offensive line is definitely true. I mean,
yeah.
I think most people feel good about the Colts offensive line, but if something happened to Bernard Ryman, everyone would feel really very
Correct.
bad all of a sudden.
You got to have a Swiss Army knife. That's one of the, and I'm not saying left tackle is an area where he can do it, but people laugh at me when I say that a guy like Danny Pinter has a lot of value, but he kind of does because he is a Swiss Army knife guy that can play at a couple different spots for you, and that's important at line because you never know where a leak can pop up.
There was that one year where they all started every game or something like that, and I think a lot of Colts fans were like, well, that's what happens with the offensive line all the time.
Yeah, no.
They just play every game, and it's never happened again
Correct.
after that. It was,
Correct.
I think it was like 2019 was when it happened.
Kind of like how you feel each time you come on this show. That's never going to happen again, is what you say to yourself, right? More often than not.
Absolutely not. I will always say yes to the beer fairy.
Yes. Now, you're not supposed to know the identity of it, Joel. All right, Joel, appreciate the time as always.
You bet. You bet.
Right, that's our friend, the exhausted Joel A. Erickson, joining us on the program. Anything you want to add, Eddie? Sometimes I can tell, Eddie, that you're incredulous because I look over and you have the look on your face like you just had like 3 of the watermelon gummies.
Zaire Franklin not out at practice today due to left ankle rehab, I believe.
Okay. Not surprising because he's been working back from that. Obviously, he just started practicing, about a week ago when he was back out there for good?
Saturday was his first practice,
Yeah,
and that was
so-
a bunch of individual drills. And then I think he went to 7-on-7 on Sunday.
He is probably on a somewhat of a limited rep basis, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
We come back. By the way, Matt Engle going to join us 2 o'clock. Somebody else just made an interesting point on your behalf, Eddie. On your behalf.
Oh.
That we'll get to when we come back here. Query and Company on the Fan. It's the fact that I'm going to be back at the State Fair tomorrow. Open disclaimer, I'm not a country music person.
Neither am I.
But in the summertime, I kind of like it because it reminds me of summer.
Is it because every other song's about a girl and beer?
Yeah, it's just always about like being outside, riding around in your truck, being by the lake, that kind of thing. But Eddie's been on a big kick today for country music. What are we doing here?
I don't know, Jake. Just shaking it up,
Shaking it up.
That's what they say, right?
Okay.
Changing it up.
Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson might be the gold standard of players who have the first name and last name both of either the first name or last name of a U.S. president. Pretty hard to argue that one. Somebody points this out when you were making the point that John Lester you think is a Hall of Famer. Okay? They said, Jake, to Eddie's point, John Lester is a World Series MVP. Now, I thought to myself, if that's true, big if true, right? However, and you would put that in your favor, Eddie, in your argument that he is a Hall of Famer, right? When earlier you made the statement that you believe John Lester is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Let me read to you a list, okay? You were born in what year, Eddie?
98.
Okay. Mariano Rivera,
Yep.
Derek Jeter, Randy Johnson, David Ortiz. End of list. Do you know what that list is?
I'm guessing those are people that aren't in yet.
No. Mariano Rivera, Derek Jeter, Randy Johnson, David Ortiz.
I don't know what that list is.
That is every World Series MVP in your lifetime that is a Hall of Famer. In other words, it's not like a slam dunk you know what I mean? Also, John Lester was not a and I'm not calling that out. I had to look it up. He was not the World Series most valuable player. Among World Series MVPs, and some of them are still active, so it's kind of unfair. But if you go back, David Freese was a World Series MVP. Edgar Renteria. Edgar Renteria was my favorite line of all time for a baseball player. You know this line, don't you, Eddie?
I do not.
Edgar Renteria was a shortstop for the St. Louis Cardinals in the years that I covered the Cardinals, 2000, 01, in that era, 99.
God, I hated playing against him. Or when the Reds did.
The Cardinals?
Cardinals, Renteria,
J.D. Drew,
Pujols,
Craig Paquette,
Edmonds,
Jim Edmonds,
seeing Adam Wainwright. Ugh.
Fernando Tatis.
Who was the other pitcher?
Matt Morris. Or no, not Matt. Was it Matt Morris? Adam Wainwright. Well, when I was there, Darryl Kyle was their ace. Rick Ankiel was the rookie that imploded, and then they moved him to outfield. Pat Hinkin was a pitcher for them, but you're thinking of Matt Morris probably. But that Cardinals team, I've told this story before. Edgar Renteria was a young player for them, very good player, shortstop. And after every game, you'd go in the clubhouse and you'd interview different guys, and you kind of got tired of, we'd always go to Edmonds, we'd always go to Will Clark. Those guys were staples. Tatis was a great interview. Mike Matheny was a good interview. And Renteria was the one player who was a very good player and a staple of that team, but he would never do interviews.
Oh, how could I forget John's favorite Cardinal of all time, Neck Tat. Yadier Molina is what he'd always call him, Neck Tat, too.
That Molina was just after that because their catcher when I was there was Matheny, and then Carlos Hernandez was the guy that would catch Ankiel, like knuckleballers. But anyway, Renteria, over the whole course of the year, the 2 years that I was there, never did an interview, never once. And whenever you'd go up and ask him, he would, he'd be like, he would very coyly let you know he didn't speak English. And then they win the division. They win the NL Central Crown.
Chris Carpenter. That's who I was thinking of.
Good pitcher, yeah. And Renteria, I walk up to him as everybody's popping champagne and spraying stuff and whatever else. And Renteria is on a cell phone and is having a conversation and is literally like, oh, it was awesome. It was great. I'm so excited. Like, we're optimistic. And he gets off the phone. I remember it was an old flip phone. He flips it shut, the little clam phone. And I say to him, hey, man, I thought you didn't speak English. And he looks right at me, my favorite quote of all time, and said, for you guys, I don't. My favorite quote ever. And I've always loved Edgar Renteria ever since. I just thought it was super cool.
Jaime Garcia, I remember him from that 11 Cardinals team that won the World Series. Lance Lynn, of course, he was on that team as well.
You're going later.
In 2011, Lynn was on that World Series team.
I'm sorry. I'm talking, but Renteria was with the Giants. He was the 2010 World Series most valuable player for the Giants. He was gone from the St. Louis by then.
And then he went to the Reds.
Yeah, he was with the Reds, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
But it is funny when you look through the list of names of guys that have won that, and the same is true of Super Bowl MVPs. World Series MVP, it typically is, in fact, a list of more marquee players because you have to do it over the course of more than just one game. Same with the NBA Finals. But like a Super Bowl MVP, you get guys that are a Super Bowl MVP for one shining moment. Larry Brown is the poster child for it. You get one great game. Larry Brown picks off Neil O'Donnell twice in the Super Bowl, becomes a Super Bowl MVP, gets a massive contract with the Raiders, and is the biggest bust in the NFL.
Well, I think you can make the same case for Major League Baseball as well, especially in like today's age. They intentionally walk and pitch around guys that are, right there at the meat of the order.
I mean, Bonds, if they would have won, if San Francisco would have won, Bonds would have been the MVP that year against the Angels, but he saw very few at-bats. When he did, he hit home runs, but he saw very few at-bats.
Ben Zobrist for the Cubs when they won
He was the MVP. Yeah, he's the MVP.
Pablo Sandoval, he's not a Hall of Famer with the Giants. He got it. David Freese.
You know what's a week from tomorrow?
Steve Pierce, there's another one.
You know what's a week
just
from tomorrow?
Just a bunch of randos. Jorge Soler with the Braves in 21.
7 days, 8 days, week from tomorrow. You want to guess?
I know what it is.
It's a big day.
It's the game that you attend every year, and you'll leave early, and there'll be an immaculate inning or something in the ninth inning like last year.
That's exactly correct. White Sox game for me a week from tomorrow.
Who are they playing, by the way?
Detroit.
Ooh.
The kind of fading Detroit Tigers, right?
They're back at it. They're back on they're on the upswing again. They're getting their ish figured out.
Yeah, they went through a slump there, even though they got off to a great start and had margin for error. We come back. The Colts are on the practice field right now with the Baltimore Ravens. We will get you caught up on it and let you know what's happening out on the East Coast. We return to Query & Company. Now we're going on the old school here.
How'd it go back in the day a little bit?
I mean, if we're doing this, we might as well go with – I mean, I've got some old school I could request for sure. You know?
Do have an update, Jake. You were just asking me leading up to the segment if we had an update on Colts camp from James Boyd, literally just seconds ago. A.D. Mitchell so far cooking in one-on-ones against the Baltimore Ravens secondary, and Anthony Richardson was first up with the team starters in the team period.
There you go. Things got underway about, just about a half an hour ago, I think, is when they really started kind of getting underway, the Colts and the Ravens, for a joint practice session. How long will it be before our first fight?
Richardson, 3 of 4 so far in the first session of 11-on-11s. Daniel Jones, 2 of 2. Yeah, I'm surprised we haven't had one yet.
They just got underway, but there will be one for sure, right? But you always get that? You know what? Here's the thing. I hope that we find out when there's a fight that the fight is because somebody took a cheap shot at Ulysses Bentley IV, and the teammates jumped in and have his back. That's what I hope. I want my man UB4 getting some love, right? Interesting comments, by the way, that Rick Carlisle made. Do you happen to have those, Eddie?
About Mr. Matherin?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So Rick Carlisle was on a podcast with Cynthia Cooper. Am I saying that name correctly?
Caitlin Cooper.
Caitlin Cooper. So, sorry, Cynthia Cooper is a former female basketball player. Caitlin Cooper is a podcaster who is very, very dialed in with the game of basketball. I mean, has a very good basketball mind. Her father was a coach, and I mean that like in-depth level stuff, X's and O's. Rick Carlisle has been very vociferous in his how much he's impressed by her and her basketball intellect as well. So when the two of them talk, it really was a good conversation because he just felt like you could tell that he was enjoying talking X's and O's with her.
Jake, he revealed to her, by the way, during the course of the conversation before they got into the actual X's and O's of basketball and talking about the Pacers, that he actually calls her and chats with her from time to time
Correct.
about different things during the
He
season.
runs things past her, right?
I wouldn't say run things past her, but I think like bounces ideas off of one another
Right.
kind of deal. And he thanked her because apparently rival teams have reached out trying to get some insight from her on the Pacers, and she has declined.
He did reveal to her publicly his approach and mindset regarding the role of Benedict Mathurin in the upcoming season.
You know, I'll be real honest. You know, this is a part of Ben Matherin's game that we keep talking to him about. You know, he's a guy that is just a natural scorer. I mean, you put him in a rat game with a bunch of switching and a bunch of physical stuff, and the guy's going to go find 18 points and he's going to shoot 7 free throws at least. But the pure elements of the passing and the quick decisions and stuff like that are things that he's gradually getting, and he's going to get there. And I think, you know, this year, right now, and I'll break the news right here. You know, I'm projecting him as our starter at 2 this year. You know, I think, you know, on day one, and I told him this. I was on the phone with him and his agent 4 days ago, and I said, you're going to be with the starters on day one. It's your job to lose, but here's what we need from you. But Ben Matherin's going to get there. He has such great gifts as a scorer. Our job as coaches is to meld guys like him that aren't necessarily seamless fits into a style that is effective for the rest of the guys and bring both forces hopefully closer together as time goes on.
As of right now, I mean, look, it's a little absurd because it's the first week in August. But I think it's fair to say their starters would be Andrew Nembhard, Ben Matherin, based on that, and I don't think that's any huge surprise. Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, and then I think it would be Isaiah Jackson to begin, right? That's a pretty good – I mean, it's not what we saw, but that's a pretty good hold serve. We have seen with the Pacers, there have been plenty of teams, plenty of eras where we've seen, and maybe you didn't even realize it in the moment, but you look back on it now and you go, that was just a hold serve roster. You know, I heard J&B talking the other day, and it was a great point. I mean, about when, you know, they're getting TJ Warren dropping 53 in a game in the bubble. And you're like, oh, man, TJ Warren and Malcolm Brogdon. Man, I love this group. You know, CJ Miles and, you know, different players they've had come through here. Man, I love this. CJ Watson. Boy, I love this guy. And you realize you're like, they're just holding serve, figuring out where they are. And, yes, this is a year that's kind of a just hold serve, keep the table busy. But at the same time, you kind of like the roster. I mean, I think the center is the big question mark. You know, between Jackson and as well Wiseman. I mean, Wiseman is intriguing because of his backstory and the fact that clearly this is not, you know, this is a guy that multiple teams thought had a lot of potential about him. And when they signed him, he was obviously a high reward, low risk sign. There's a little bit more risk now because his role is elevated. But, you know, nonetheless, and then Jay Huff, you know, I saw the other day video, people were like, look at this video, Jay Huff. He's driving all over the place. He's dunking. He's schooling guys. He's taking 2 steps back and hitting threes. And I'm like, this is all awesome. It's also coming at like the Tabernacle Men's Choir of Madrid. You know, I mean, he was on like some Spanish league in the summertime, and he was basically dunking on Eddie and John Herrick. So it's like, okay, you know. But, I mean, he looked fluid, and I think that there is intrigue about him because of his size at 7'1", but I don't think that he is a guy that immediately comes in and starts. But he does have some ability that mirrors what it was that Turner did. And by that, I simply mean a stretch 5 that can shoot a little bit and has some range of motion and length defensively. But I have no idea how good he'll be. Isaiah Jackson, I really liked before he got hurt, and I'm intrigued to see what he can do. But Jackson and Wiseman both, neither one of them do I think of as 15-foot and out jump shooters, whereas Turner had that ability. Not jump shooters, but shooters, and Turner had that ability. Matt Engle, by the way, I think he's a voter for the Baseball Hall of Fame. But I wanted to have Mac on because, number one, he's got a good story about Miles Turner because Mac, my childhood buddy, of course, but he writes for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, grew up here in Indy, and now covers the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are just drama, drama, drama. And
Dallas
he has
Cowboy.
What's that?
The Dallas Cowboy.
That's right. And he has a good Miles Turner relationship and has covered him since high school and had an opportunity to talk to Miles Turner since Turner left Indiana. Mac's going to join us next. Eddie Garrison continues his tour of random bad country music, although I will admit, again, summertime, like this is a fun concert. Kenny Chesney's fun concert. Joining us now on the program, and I'm sure thrilled because he feels just at home in Texas by hearing that kind of music, Matt Engle is with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, native of Indianapolis, and there are all kinds of connections between the two, to be honest with you. Mac probably is wondering why I wanted him to come on the show today. And, Mac, I do think that even though I want to talk to you about some Indianapolis-based things, there is an element of, the Dallas Cowboys are a national brand. And,
Right.
The NFL is the 800-pound gorilla. And it just seems like every year, but more so this year than most, your coverage of the Cowboys, you are right there in the biggest drama soap opera of the NFL. At least from afar, that's how it seems. What about when you're actually in the midst of it covering them?
Hoosiers is Indiana basketball under Bob Knight in the 80s. And, because he was such a personality. And obviously this is different because you've got players involved and you've got a game that's, has a stranglehold on America that certainly eclipses the popularity of college basketball, even back in the 80s. So you've got a handful of players who have star wattage, and then you have an owner who really reshaped sports consumerism in America and really globally since he bought the team in '88. So, and he's just completely poured gasoline over all of it because he recognized almost before anybody else that there was money to be made in just talking about it. And the more you talked about it, the more eyeballs that were drawn to it. And so we took a brand that was already renowned because of the success they had, and then he just completely turned up the volume on it to the nth degree. So now everybody's interested in it, even though they haven't won anything of note since 1996. It's really impressive.
Is Jerry Jones, Mac, guilty of thinking that because he's been around it, that he is a smarter football mind than he is?
Well, he has one thing going for him that no other owner, I think, in sports has going for them. I think. Jerry played major college football. He was an offensive lineman, which is hard to believe if you look at the man, but he was an offensive lineman for the University of Arkansas's national championship team back in, I don't know, however many, 63 or whatever year it was. And if you look up and down sports owners, none of them played. I can't think of any of them who played.
I mean, Jim Irsay did peripherally, right? But I realize he's the late Jim Irsay now. But you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. Jim played a little bit, and certainly he had, he did some things on the side in terms of weightlifting, and so he put himself in the arena, like you said, peripherally. But Jerry always had that going for him. And it was the one thing about his resume that he could point to. You wouldn't, I wouldn't, but he could point to and say, listen, I played the game. I was around this guy or this guy and this guy. I was on a team with Barry Switzer. I was on a team with Jimmy Johnson. I was on a team coached by Frank Broyles and blah, blah, blah. So he could use that as a solid point of sale to his football expertise. And the guy's not a total idiot. I mean, you'd think you'd be around something for 30 years. You would have learned something, and he has. But the inescapable reality of it is that he doesn't really put that much emphasis on some of the details that you might or a coach might. His idea is, if you give me the best talent, we're going to win. These coaches are pretty much all the same. They're all pretty good. He doesn't really distinguish one from the other, even though most people would say, yeah, Bill Belichick with Tom Brady, he was probably better than Bill Belichick with Vinny Testaverde. Bill Belichick's still a good coach, and in Jerry's mind, Bill Belichick was made by Tom Brady. So he just, that's just how he sees it. And so, and then if you couple that expertise and arrogance and experience with the fact that he mercilessly markets anything that he does in the zombie-like ambition to make more money, no matter how much he has, well, now you've got this cocktail that is unlike anything that really we've seen in sports in the last 50 years.
Okay, the Colts aren't really in the market for a pass rush guy. I mean, I think they have it in Liatu Latu. Kwity Paye is probably just a guy, but he's okay. He's not great. He's just okay. But, as a first-rounder, you kind of want more. Dallas has it at Micah Parsons in an elite-level pass rush end, but now that's the big drama. There seems to always be drama around the Cowboys. What is the latest on Parsons, and where's he going to end up?
Well, he's their franchise guy. He's Lawrence Taylor 2.0, which is a lot to put on a guy, but from a talent and athlete perspective, he's amazing. He could be an Olympic caliber wrestler today if he wanted to, because he was a wrestler in high school with almost no effort. He was the guy who athletically would walk on any field and kick the hell out of anybody that he was on the field with. And unbelievably, that translated to Penn State, and now it's translated to the NFL. Normally you see that guy kind of weeds itself out and he kind of evens out. Well, Jake, this guy's still so good, so now he's the man. And now he's up for a contract extension, not this season, but next season. But this is usually when you get those deals done. You get the extensions done the year before they go into the final year of their rookie contract. So now he's been going back and forth directly with Jerry Jones, not the agent. And the agent, a big, powerful guy in the NFL, a guy named David Mugalaga, says, well, no, I need to be a part of this. And Jerry's like, no, I want to deal directly with the player. Well, of course he does, because the players, it's easier to take advantage of it, even though, Jake, taking advantage of players and NFL contracts is almost impossible anymore, because these contracts now are mostly predetermined because of the collective bargaining agreement.
Players Association and all that, right? Yeah.
Right. So this is done. He's going to get basically what Myles Garrett got and then T.J. Watt got. It's going to be something really close to that. It's done. It might be a little bit more, but effectively just look at what those two guys got and that's what he's going to get. But it hasn't been ironed out yet. So now Micah Parsons, who has his own podcast, of course, and Twitter account and all this other stuff, well, he's banging the drum to create noise and tension to try to get this done, to the point where he does something that no other Cowboys player has ever done. We were talking about this. Micah Parsons requested a trade. All these guys who have been in contract spats with Jerry Jones have never requested a trade. None of them want to leave the Cowboys, because you can make so much more money as a Cowboy in peripheral stuff and marketing opportunities, which is limited anyways in the NFL. But you can make more doing that than you would be if you requested and were granted a trade to, say, Jacksonville or Pittsburgh or something. So Micah has done that, and that's what has set this apart. Would they trade him? They're not going to trade him.
Yeah, they're going to sign him, right? He's going to get the money, right?
He'll get the money, I would imagine, what was it, August 5th or something? I would imagine around the 20th or something. Maybe they wait to the 11th hour, but you and I both know players of that ability and caliber, they weren't going to play in the preseason anyways. I mean, there's more value now in not playing football than in playing football, because everybody's terrified of injuries in every sport. So now this guy wasn't going to do anything anyways. So he's out of camp in California, making sure that he doesn't get fined. But he's not doing anything except walking around talking to coaches. The guy's a freak athlete. He's fine, but he's not going to get traded. Just for the sake of argument, let's just say it goes to that bad, and they say, okay, give us your best offer. I would think the Colts, because I'm not sold. Who's the kid from UCLA that they drafted?
Yeah, the Atulatu.
Yeah, no way. I can't believe they drafted him. I had that surgery, and I realize I'm a middle-aged man, but I'm like, they're all lying to themselves about the long-term ramifications of that surgery, lying just full of it. He might be really good now. He's not going to age well. He's not. So if they go on, let's say they say, okay, gee whiz, if we can get Micah Parsons, let's do this. It's going to be at least 2 number ones. Jim Irsay's ghost is not going to come in and pull a Fred Young and give up 2 number ones for Micah Parsons or anybody else that isn't a quarterback. So I can't see any team giving up 2 number ones to acquire a phenomenal defensive player as good as he is.
When you look, Mac, at like where the Colts are, and I'm curious from your standpoint, I think that this is a franchise and a market, and this, you're from here. We've been pretty spoiled in the fact that the Colts have just, for years they fell out of bed and won 12 games, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And it's hard to grasp that since their last AFC South title, every other team in the division has won it twice since the Colts last won it. From your perspective, taking your connection to Indianapolis out of it, what is the Colts' level of relevance in the NFL right now in 2025?
Bottom third. You know, when we were kids growing up there, the only reason why the Colts were interesting when they moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis, they had a new facility and they had the stain nationally of having left their Baltimore in the middle of the night. And then they traded for Eric Dickerson. That was a big deal. But other than that, they weren't really relevant until, you know, they had that quick bump with Jim Harbaugh leading them to the AFC Championship game and damn near winning it. But, you know, that franchise had mostly been a bottom five team until Peyton Manning and Bill Polian and that whole thing lined up. And they made a generation of Colts fans. And I don't think I ever shared this with you. I remember visiting with Tony Stewart, the NASCAR driver, and I introduced myself, you know, being from Indiana, and we talked. He was great. And I said, how is it now? He said, you wouldn't believe it. He said, the Colts have completely remade that state. He said, it'll always be basketball, but football has a place now next to it because of the Colts on that mantle in terms of priorities. Well, now, ever since the Andrew Luck retirement, I mean, look at it. I mean, it sucks. I hate it for the city. I hate it for my family. I hate it for my friends. I hate it for you all because it really does help, and it is a point of civic pride when the team's pretty good. You're not going to win Super Bowl every year, but I would say where they are now, they're not where they were when we were kids and they were first moved to town and they were awful. And, you know, Bob Irsay had no idea what he was doing. But, you know, I would say, I mean, Jake, as much as I hate to say it, I would be willing to bet all of my money. I may have said it to you on your show. I'd be willing to bet all of my money. Half of that building, the Colts building, thinks Anthony Richardson can't play and they need to move on. And they'll never do it. They have to see it through. But until they get that position fixed, I don't think a lot of people are really thinking about the Indianapolis Colts these days.
Mac, how old were you? Mac Engle's our guest, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. In that capacity in covering sports in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, how old was Miles Turner the first time you met him?
Miles was a senior. He was going into his senior year of high school, being recruited by everybody and their brother in the state and nationally, a five-star kid at a local public high school. And what's interesting about that is that was 10 or 11 years ago. A player of that caliber now probably would not be at a public school. He would be at some private school on scholarship. But he was at a public school, and one of the more charming, bright young guys I've ever had a chance to visit with. And he made a fan out of me. I really enjoyed getting to know his dad, David Turner. And but he was a hell of a player on a team where he had no help. I mean, he should have won a state championship, but he was just on one of those teams where he was the best player by leaps and bounds, and he just couldn't. It literally was 1-on-5.
And
he made
you
it
have,
competitive.
I would assume, Mac, in that capacity, you have, you know, it's disingenuous to say like, well, you've stayed in great touch with him and you guys talk all the time. But I would assume that when he comes back to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you have covered him or interviewed him or made the connection about Indiana and et cetera.
Yeah.
In that capacity, within those conversations, were you surprised the way things ended here in Indiana?
I think only because I've done this long enough like you, the surprise of it is gone. Let me change that. The shock of it is gone. But I was surprised. I was surprised only because I had heard Rick Carlisle and maybe other members of Pacers management say keeping him was a priority. And the other part and then he was gone. And everything I read, the Bucks just came in and blew him away, and Indiana didn't want to match it. And the part that
Indiana didn't get a chance to match it, though, Mac, is the thing, right? I mean,
they didn't even get a
and
chance.
I think that's what surprised Indiana is that Miles Turner, and the reason I ask it is this, not to lead the witness here, but so Miles Turner, by all account here, sits down, or his representation does, and the Pacers don't know that Miles Turner has a pending offer from Milwaukee. And the Bucks basically say, look, here is this offer, and you take it or you leave it, and you cannot give Indiana a chance to counter. And Indiana throws their offer out, and he says, I'm taking Milwaukee's then. And they didn't realize it at that moment that Milwaukee was in play. By knowing him and knowing him at an age or seeing him at an age where he was more vulnerable and influenced, does that then, when I say it that way, surprise you that he would have been that eager to act in that way is the wrong way of saying it, but act upon that?
Yeah. I really, I was texting you occasionally during the Eastern Conference Finals and NBA Finals, and I wore a little bit of that one on my sleeve. The Pacer fan in me really came out. I had the shirt, the sticker, the pennant. I was really into it, and I was somewhat biased because I've interviewed Miles, and I wanted to see him do well, and I know that he has been a good steward and ambassador for the NBA and the Indiana Pacers in Indiana, dealing with when he's been out in the community. That's worth something. I don't know how much it's worth, but it's worth something. It's not nothing, and I've commended him for that. And I wanted to see guys like that stick around, and I want to see him do well. And when he didn't do well in the NBA Finals, and I don't think anybody could sit there and say, well, no, he did okay. It's not the number. No, he just didn't. Unless Jake, you watched something that I didn't see. I saw a guy who was completely overmatched and had no place in that series whatsoever.
He has come back to Dallas-Fort Worth, correct? Have you gotten a chance to talk to Miles Turner since his change of team?
No, he came back. Well, let me back that up. Let me ask you that. I want to ask you that question. Do you think he had a place in that final series, or they completely exposed him and took him away?
Exposed is probably the wrong word, but yes, I think he was taken away. You know what I mean?
So they took him away. And to answer your question, yeah, he was back. And can I share the anecdote that you and I talked about
Sure.
the other day?
Yeah, absolutely. Have at.
Okay, great. So he comes back to Dallas-Fort Worth, and he's going to work. He's going to do a public appearance at a fast food place that's popular in the Southwest. I don't know if it's, or Southeast rather. I don't know if it's in Indiana or not. A place called Raising Cane's Chicken. And the PR guy from Raising Cane's Chicken reaches out to me and says, "Would love for you to come out and talk to Miles. I know it's the last minute. Would you like to do it?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, yes. Love to see him again. This would be great." And it's 20 minutes from my house, which the ease of it was like, "Oh yeah, let's go." So the guy emails me. He said, "What do you want to ask Miles?" Which has now become standard. And I said, "Well, coming back to DFW, the NBA Finals, making it all the way to the finals, leaving Indiana and going to Milwaukee." Guy says, "Will you ask about Raising Cane's Chicken?" I said, "Yes, absolutely. Sure, of course. For sure. That's quid pro quo. That's totally normal." 10 minutes later, I get an email that says, "Miles' team says no questions about the Pacers, Bucks, or the finals. Only questions about coming back and Raising Cane's Chicken." To which I said, "Absolutely not. I mean, I can't be a total just walking commercial influencer. I have to be able to ask him a couple of things about basketball, because if I'm not, then what am I even doing there other than being, an influencer?" So I was like, "No, I'm not going to go. I can't do that unless you want to give me $1,000, which, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. So no, I didn't see him. I wanted to congratulate him, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to totally debase myself yet unless you're going to give me more money. But no, I didn't see him. And I was, like I said, Jake, I was really bummed for him. I'm happy he got a bunch of money. Good for him. But I don't know where the hell he sits in Milwaukee. I'm like, well, how is that going to work? But those guys are a lot smarter than I am, so maybe it'll work out.
Mac, you're an influencer.
I totally am. I'm not fooling myself anymore.
You're an Instagram influencer. I know this. You're running around.
Influencer.
I mean, I can't go anywhere with you. You're going around. You're taking selfies the whole time. I get it. Right? I mean, you're over in...
I'm telling you, I made the wrong career choice. If I was a young, hot blonde, ESPN would be burying me in money right now as a social commentator influencer. I made a huge mistake when we were kids. Add that one to the list.
Yeah, there you go, right? That's the way it works. All right, Matt Engle, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. So Micah Parsons going to stay in Dallas, right? And Liatu Latu not going to be another Micah Parsons.
Yes, and Mike is not going anywhere. And I would give that kid, the UCLA kid, a good 3 to 5 year window, and anytime after that, I'd be holding my breath.
And it was a neck surgery that he had, right?
He had neck fusion surgery, and what happens is, now he's a lot younger than I am, pro athlete, so I'm not kidding myself. But what does happen is that it does degenerate somewhat, and it's harder to maintain your strength. That's what I've noticed.
Gotcha. All right, Mac, appreciate it, man. Enjoy the summer down there.
All right, it's great talking to you. Thanks, Jake.
It's only 115 degrees down there, I'm sure. Matt Engle, Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Interesting stuff, though. I'm telling you, the Cowboys are just one of those franchises that, like, when they do move the needle, which is funny because why? I mean, it's literally been 30 years of the Cowboys are – if you had to mention it, Eddie, I mean, you follow this stuff, right, like from a national standpoint. How many franchises can you name that are more often in the news when it comes to the NFL annually, year-round, more so than the Dallas Cowboys?
The Chicago Bears, maybe, but that's about it.
You think the Bears?
Oh, yeah. Every year there's something.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'll push back on that. I guess just because they've had the number one pick a couple of times recently, but like in terms of the Bears always have a storyline around them, I guess. But in terms of like coverage from camp and et cetera, it's like the Cowboys just seemingly are always. Jerry Jones is the most visible owner, is it not?
Yes, correct. He is, and he's the only owner GM, isn't he?
I mean, the bus and the whole thing, right? I mean, it's just nonstop drama. It feels like nonstop.
The lack of personal hygiene as well. Boy, that's not.
He does not carry hand sanitizer. I wish he did. All right, we'll get you caught up on what's taking place in Baltimore right now. Anthony Richardson, we had mentioned 3 for 4 early on in their practice against the Ravens. The Colts are practicing right now, organized practice, preseason game on Thursday against the Ravens. And Stephanie White talked with us earlier, the latest on Caitlin Clark and her availability. We will let you know what was said next. Colts are practicing right now with the Baltimore Ravens. And one player had a message for James Boyd and Stephen Holder, which I will let you know about. Apparently, it is the player who right now is having the best showing against the Ravens in these practice sessions. But before we get to that, earlier Stephanie White joined us. Fever in action tonight, taking on the Sparks of Los Angeles in L.A. That game, a 10 o'clock tip, Eddie?
Yes,
10
10
o'clock
o'clock
with
tip.
the pregame at what time?
9:45.
And Eddie will have the postgame as well. And we talked about a number of things with Stephanie White today, but among those, obviously, the big question is that of the availability of Caitlin Clark. The Fever have won 5 straight games. In those 5 games, they've had 3 different players that at some point have been their leading scorer. Aaliyah Boston is the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, or Player of the Month, actually. And
Week.
Is it week?
Week,
okay.
yes.
She is on a streak of 5 or 6 straight double-doubles. 6, Eddie points out to me.
Franchise record.
And the Fever are going for their 6th straight win tonight. But the big question still remains that of Caitlin Clark and whether or not she will and when she will make her return for the Fever. And for that matter, even at the practice floor. Here is head coach earlier today, Stephanie White.
Yeah, I mean, there's no changes yet. Continuing to go through this rehab process. Beginning to do some running and build some endurance and continuing to take it slow and make sure that when she does come back, when she does return to court activities, that she's 100% ready to go.
So that's where things stand with that. So no, and you could tell there was not that was going to be the case. Really, there was no indication that it would be otherwise. Fever in action tonight.
I feel bad for Stephanie White in this sense, Jake. Like, just because the attention that Caitlin Clark gets from, viewership, fans, etc., like, I feel like she could recite that by now in her sleep on that reply.
Probably true.
Just because, she gets asked
But she
about
might
it
have
so
by the end of that
often.
interview, right?
Right.
But they want to get her practicing for a while before she gets into games, which is why I still believe, I'm going to stick by it, that it's going to be after that game on the 17th where they have 5 days off before they play again on the 22nd. But a couple of games to play between now and then.
That could be a fun one, Jake, because they would face Minnesota. It would be the first matchup in the regular season between the two teams. And yesterday it was announced Nafisa Collier is missing at least 2 weeks. And that puts her return around that same timeline of could Nafisa Collier, who is currently probably the odds-on favorite for the MVP, and Caitlin Clark reunite.
And they played once, obviously, in a game that does not go against the regular season standings in that in-season tournament championship that the Fever had won. Okay, as for the Colts, Stephen Holder, James Boyd standing on the sideline. A guy for the Colts made a play, looked at both of them, made a comment that was apparently had an expletive in it in reference to basically pointing out that Baltimore cannot stop this particular guy. He then made another great play, looked at Boyd and Stephen Holder and said essentially like, see, I told you so. And I'm talking about what apparently is the continuing practice emergence of A.D. Mitchell, who is having a good practice against the Ravens to this point. So that is where things stand with the Colts practice today. Anthony Richardson started out. He was the quarterback that started taking reps with the starters in that particular practice. Again, I don't know that you read a lot into which one is getting the first snaps, but rather how well they're playing. And at last report, Richardson was throwing the ball well. So too, though, was Daniel Jones. Both of them essentially in rhythm. So,
something to add to that, Jake. I think that speaks largely of the Colts secondary and how confident Lou Anarumo and Shane Steichen have been, because there have been days where the two Colts quarterbacks have looked bad and we didn't know, the track record would tell us that it's largely because of the two quarterbacks. But Lamar Jackson was 2 of 7 in the 11-on-11 period earlier. So when they're doing this against, an actual respectable quarterback who's a 2-time MVP and one of the best in the league, and Lamar Jackson, I think that speaks, largely to how well that secondary is for the Colts, and that maybe there have been strides for both of these quarterbacks with, the system change for Daniel Jones and then some of the focuses of improvement mechanically for Anthony Richardson.
Zaire Franklin, by the way, not practicing today. That's not a huge surprise because Zaire Franklin, of course, coming back off of the ankle surgery and was a late kind of addition to camp itself. And once I'm sure he is basically on a pitch count getting out there because of the fact that you want to be careful with that ankle and make sure that you are gingerly going through it. And you probably have the benefit of the fact that with a guy like Zaire Franklin, he's got a pretty good idea what needs to be done and what he's doing. So in that regard, that's where things stand with him and the way things are going. You had mentioned, Eddie, the Caitlin Clark situation with Stephanie White.
Yes.
I think sometimes with players, with any player, you weigh out when you are determining whether to draft a player, whether to sign a player, whether to start a player, whatever it might be. You weigh out if there's potential distraction, what the level of distraction is, and then what the level of payoff is. And I remember, for example, when Michael Sam was coming into the NFL, and Missouri, I believe, is where he played.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Sam was the first outwardly gay player going into an NFL draft. And there was a lot of discussion about where he would be selected. And Tony Dungy caught some criticism in saying that he wouldn't draft Michael Sam. And I think people thought just because of Tony Dungy's theological stances that he was talking about, it was seen as a homophobic statement. And Tony Dungy went on to explain that what he meant by that was whenever you have a player that has with him non-football attachment and storyline, that you then weigh how much that player at maximum can bring to your team versus how much distraction that player can bring to your team. And there are players that you are willing to deal with the baggage. There are certain players that, like Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was a walking sideshow and a walking storyline and a walking TMZ. But, I remember, even Bob Knight one time said, I'd love to have him on my team. And they said, well, all the things he brings to the table. And he said, not the way he plays. When he's on the floor, the benefit he brings you offsets whatever distraction is there. So if the distraction is a 7 out of 10, then as a player, the benefit has to be more than a 7. And when players sometimes start to fall in a draft, or players start to fall in a free agency period, and you wonder, what in the world is going on? It's because at some point they cross the intersection of what would be a draw in terms of what they bring versus what they encapsulate. And there's one guy right now that I think we're seeing it because everybody started to wonder how in the world this guy could fall. Everybody started to wonder why in the world this guy was not getting opportunity. Everybody started to analyze others at his position of he's better than those players. What's going on? He's being penalized because of things beyond his control, because of associations he has. And I look right now at training camp, and you mentioned, Eddie, that you feel bad for Stephanie White because of the fact that she's got to constantly answer these questions about Caitlin Clark. And the Cleveland Browns right now have a guy in Shedeur Sanders who was, sure, maybe at ceiling, he's a 6.5 of what he can bring to your franchise. But in terms of the scrutiny and the drama right now, he's a 7. In the fact that, and I'm not saying it's his fault, But it's like when Tim Tebow was trying out for the New York Jets and you literally could not flip past ESPN without seeing Sal Palantoni or some reporter like 8 minutes till Jets camp, 10 minutes till Jets camp.
And the same thing when he went to Jacksonville.
Yeah, it was just constant, right? Constant.
Or when he played baseball.
And so with that, the nonstop scrutiny eventually overshadows and usurps what it is that they can bring to the table. And a guy like Shedeur Sanders may well be eventually a decent player. But if you are a general manager, if you're a head coach, if you're an offensive coordinator, do you want a guy on your roster that every time you are not catering towards that guy, everyone is jumping up and down, questioning it and making allegations about it and going on about the lunacy that you're not catering to this particular player? And especially when you look at it and you go, but the ceiling payoff is an 8, and this distraction now, this headache is like a 12. And literally every time I turn around, I'm seeing different stories about question marks of why Shedeur Sanders is not the third-string quarterback. And look, here's Joe Flacco now is listed as the starter, and how absurd is that? And what about and it's just constant.
Well, he's hurt right now. He hasn't been practicing either.
I know, and that's what I mean. Like, and yet. But even with that, Eddie, there is discussion that he hasn't, when he has been out there or OTAs or whatever, he just he's not shown what it was that they want to see. Again, even if he is healthy and progresses, what is his level of impact versus the level of sideshow?
Yeah, and I feel like to kind of connect this to the fever, Jake, like their success lately, the winning 5 in a row, going for 6 and 7-2 or 8-2 in the last 10. Largely, I kind of credit it now to like the water has calmed. There's no more. The storm is gone. There's no more drama, and like they've been able to settle in. Like you had the Sophie Cunningham thing right at the start of the season. You had Dwana Bonner situation, and Stephanie White misses a couple of games, especially in the first month of the year because of some personal things that were going on in her life. So like all that stuff puts a toll on you, and your best player is out. And now it's kind of all stabilized, and it feels like they have finally settled in.
It does feel like, I hate to say this, because Caitlin Clark is a phenomenal talent, and the straw mixing the drink, and the marketing genius of it all, and you are a better team with her available. There's no denying that. But it also has been kind of nicely off the radar for them where they've been able to put these things together and put together a nice win streak. I'm very, very, very curious to see how it works when she then comes back in and mixes back in. Speaking of mixes back in, we'll mix it in with John. JMV is going to be with you next. We will hand it off to him and put a tie on all of it here and get you caught up on the last things that may be happening in Baltimore as well. I worry that you've gotten too comfortable with the country hits.
Wouldn't it have been something if I just came back with like some jazz by Duke Ellington or Barbra Streisand here? It'd be a polar opposite.
By the way, Thursday we're going to be at the Legends Golf Club, of course, 10 o'clock in the morning.
Bluegrass?
Huh?
Or some bluegrass?
I like bluegrass. Lotus Dickey. Play some Bill Monroe. I took a class on bluegrass music and the history of jazz and blues music in Indiana when I was in college, Eddie, and one of the fascinating storylines that I've mentioned this before that I've always, and I wish you could still go there. I don't think it's still there, but the Star Piano Company in Richmond, Indiana, had a recording studio kind of in the back area of it for a lot of jazz and blues musicians that a lot of places in Indiana would not record them back in the day. But if there were musicians coming from Memphis that were trying to get to Chicago but didn't want to go all the way up that far or for whatever reason, the Star Piano Company had a recording studio where they would, and I can't remember the name of the record label, that they recorded like Dizzy Gillespie and Jelly Roll Morton and all kinds of musicians. And the studio itself for the piano company, I think there might still be like a smokestack left of the company itself, but they just tore it down, or I think it collapsed or something like 5 or 10 years ago. And it always made me mad that I didn't get a chance to see it because it's kind of an unwritten aspect of Indianapolis music lore, or Indiana music lore, I should say. When I was in high school, when I was at WJEL, which is part of the J. Everett Light Career Center attached to North Central, and I took radio and television. And so I was in the radio station a lot after school hours. And the custodian for J. Everett Light Career Center, we just called him Hub, and Hub would push around his precursor to the days of now, iPods and whatever else. Hub always would push around this huge trash barrel with his, cleaning stuff as he would go into rooms. And finally, one time when I was walking into the J. Everett Light Career Center, I looked in, I could hear music. And I looked in, and Hub, while he was cleaning one of the rooms, had a record player set up. And that trash barrel that he would push around, underneath all the towels, he carried a record player. And so he had this record player playing, and it was jazz music. And Hub invited me in, and it was then that I learned that he was the younger brother of legendary musician Freddie Hubbard.
Oh, nice. And
so it was the music of Freddie Hubbard that he would listen to while he was cleaning. And so he then kind of opened up, and I mean, Hub was the best. And hearing the stories of, those days of just going around and playing the different clubs in Indianapolis, and it was fascinating stuff, and it was particularly fascinating stuff that I appreciated the most for being just a kid from the north side that was naive to a great part of a lot of that. My buddy Frank Davis, who lives here in town, is a huge aficionado and historian of jazz as well, goes to the Jazz Kitchen, and hearing the stories of that era of music and those that have the ear to be able to understand the finer tastes of it, to me, fascinating stuff. I mean, there's just so much history and storytelling that goes in with all of that. But at any rate, I was going to mention on Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning, Legends Golf Club. We will be there benefiting the Franciscan Foundation. I've seen kind of the calendar of events that are taking place. It's going to be a ton of fun out at the Legends for the Fan Invitational Golf Outing. And I look forward to that. I'm playing Pleasant Run, I think, tomorrow. And I hope that doesn't completely – I got to be on my game on Thursday in case – we're going to be doing the show out there, so I don't know that I'll be hitting the links per se.
Well, tomorrow's Wednesday, Jake.
I know. I'm playing Pleasant Run tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying the golf outing is on Thursday.
Well, you're in tip-top shape. You should be perfectly fine.
Yeah. I ain't playing 36 holes in 2 days probably, right? So I got to pace myself tomorrow. But it's been a while since I've played. I've had some things going on. I've not been able to be out on the golf course.
Now, what would Dr. White say if you were concerned, Jake, about this, huh?
You got to feed the ball. You got to hit the ball, Jake. I haven't done my Dr. White impersonation in a while, but you got to get a bucket of balls, Jake. You got to go out and get a bucket of balls.
You talking about Gannett or Jeanette Records?
Yes, thank you. That is it. Jeanette Records. That is indeed correct.
Shout out to my old program director at WICR, Henry Pensis, with that one.
That is correct. Jeanette, Genett. Might be two N's. But, yes, that was connected to the Star Piano Company of Richmond, Indiana. And they recorded a ton of those people back in the day. So tomorrow we are going to be out at the Indiana State Fair. I look forward to that. James Boyd will join us to recap for us everything that's gone on between the Colts and the Ravens. And then we will be there for some
Colts
harness
and
racing
Ravens
at the State Fairgrounds as well. JMV has arrived.
I'm here, buddy. Hey, I got a question for you really quick. Hey, when did they stop? When did they stop in this state telling you before you get to the road that's closed that the road is closed?
Well, they're all closed now.
Because they treat this like Smokey and the Bandit now. Remember Smokey and the Bandit? Hey, great. Tell me the bridge is out as I get to the bridge.
Right.
I would have taken a different route. When did they start not telling you or informing you?
Once they assumed you just use Waze, I guess.
Is that it?
I guess.
Can you not put a sign up like a half mile down the road?
What road was closed that
All of
shocked
them.
you?
Everyone.
You're right about that.
Each one.
And lots of bike paths being put in, which I'm cool with that, but it's narrowing the road. The street I live on up north, they just got done redoing all of it, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Like, it feels like the lanes are way thinner.
Wait, are they completely done now? I know they had one side working on.
They still have some barrels out.
I have a
But you
question
just
for
go
Eddie
around
Garrison.
them.
He can look this up, too.
Okay.
What's the Colts record since they've gone with the mantra or motto for the shoe?
When did they start that?
Because I'm ready to drop that like a bad habit.
What about Colts Forged? Are you done with that, too?
I just for the shoe, and the reason why I bring this up, it's on the side. It's going up on the side of the JW, and I'm thinking we're kind of done with that. This has been a losing. It's like Pacer Pride in the 1980s.
I love Pacer Pride.
I mean, great
Pride.
commercials that were earworms, but it was surrounding losing.
Do the Pacers now just stick with yes sirs? Because that did appear to stick, and they were a half away from winning it all.
As much as I hate every second of it, I would have to agree with you on that. Probably so.
I don't like it either, and Shannon Walsh hates it, but yes.
It's got to be something underdog-wise, but can we not come up with something else for the Colts? Eddie, are you looking this up feverishly over there?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out when it was.
I wonder when they started this because there's zero way
It started
they
in
have won
2020.
at a high level since they started for the shoe.
Started 2020.
2020?
August 16th of 2020 is when they debuted it.
Okay.
Don't you think it's time for something new?
I'll tell you what the record is right now.
2020.
August of 20?
Mm-hmm.
So the 2021 season, is that right?
It would be for the 2020 season, right? 2021.
In other words, the season was 20 going into 2021 in the postseason, right? The 2020 season, right? So based on that, their record with it is, let's see, 20-17, 24-29, 33-37, 41-56. Is that right? That seems harsh. 11-5 and 9-8 would be 20-17. 24-29, 33-37, 41-56. 41-56 for the shoe.
Yeah, it's time to change that up. Can they put something like we sucked when it was for the shoe? Or finally.
Wait, that can't be right. Hold on.
We're back.
20-13.
We have to remember they sucked one year like really, really bad.
24-25. Hang on just a second. 33-33. Sorry. 41-42.
Yeah.
41-42.
41-42. So a
41
losing
and
record
42.
for the shoe. Are you not? Listen, I know nobody cares. All you care about is the product on the field, but aren't we past for the shoe by now?
I've always thought it was hokey.
For the shoe.
What does it mean?
We're there for the shoe. We're watching and interested and cheering for the shoe.
Not only that, but here's the thing. The for the shoe era also was, if I'm not mistaken, we were told that everything was for the shoe, and it was the end of that first year of it, was it not, where it was like all chips in, period?
Yeah.
Like we're going to get rid of anybody unless they're all chips in, period.
All chips in,
So what you learned was that not everybody was for the shoe, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, could you not do something for Jim here too? Like for Jim? I mean, anything else other than for the shoe?
I don't disagree with you.
For the shoes for losers.
I think all the marketing things are kind of hokey.
Who came up with that? Who am I offending by that? Who's the marketeer that
John,
I'm offending?
You know who doesn't have slogans?
Winners?
Correct. You know who doesn't change their uniform every year?
Winners?
Yes.
Yeah. Good idea.
All right, John's up next. We'll be back with you at noon tomorrow. I thank you for listening to Query & Company.